And at that point, you're going to be utilizing time for continuation. Time will tell you at 10:20 if it wants to continue. So again, we're using 953, but because 953 is very close by, we're not going to be taking profit there. Instead, we're going to be using standard deviation targets. Once it hits -2, take profit. You don't want to see it close below -2.5, closes below, take profit at -4 next. And that's all you need. Now, what happens thereafter? If Judas occurs in most cases, so I'm going to have to redraw that, 955 to 1020. When is the terminus? When is the endpoint in best case scenarios? 1110, 1149, 1235. You can see how price stalled out at 1235 thereafter, and it was just time distortion. Why is that the case? Well, you again must be observing the 15-minute chart and or 1 hour chart, and looking to see if there is any 15-minute PD arrays there. If you were to observe the 15-minute, then you can see this very small 15-minute BISI, and price does not hit it until right around 1235. Taps into it before, but after it does that, there's no 15-minute, again, there's no 15-minute body close beneath that BISI, so it's not an inversion, and instead price is respecting the CE of that and is not closing below it on the 15-minute time frame. Now, Judas can extend in best case scenarios. This is a best case scenario for Judas. You get a sharp move like this, taps into a 15-minute PD array, beautiful inversion, and keeps trailing all the way down until 1235. Why? Because there's no 15-minute PD array. There's no inefficiency. Instead, price seeks to reprice off this range, the low to the high, to that specific inefficiency, that specific BISI, because that is the only inefficiency throughout the range. Once it taps into that and time and price meet at 1235, you should not be looking for shorts. Okay? You should not be looking for shorts at that point, especially after this large move. Instead, what can you expect after? Because Model 11, Model 110 was used for continuation of Judas. What can you expect in this scenario? You can expect Model 111 to occur, an end of day move to take out any low resistance liquidity. Where is the low resistance liquidity? Right there. What happens? End of day, you see a random push up. So these models, they intertwine with each other. And you can, once you begin to master them, and we'll talk about it more and more later on throughout the videos, you can see how they intertwine with each other and how there's a pattern of these time models, right? So let's do a couple more examples for Judas. And I'll show you some very clear-cut buy-side examples. This is another sell-side, engineered sell-side Judas, where it pushed down to what? 1149. Why did it stop at 1149? Again, because there's a 15-minute PD array here. That is met. At that point, it was model what? Model 110, which we talked about in a later video. These are examples of violent Judas swings. So now, instead of, this is the example we just talked about. When did it end? Around 1235 to 1409. But instead now it's towards the buy side. So here's a pretty clear-cut example of what a perfect bread and butter can be for Judas. We mark that interval. This is one of the easiest trades to make when it comes to Judas. Forms engineered liquidity. What are we paying attention to? The 953 opening price. It's your root candle. Goes into discount of that. This is where you're going to want to long. Observe, again, the 15-minute time frame. Makes it higher probability if there is a 15-minute PD array there. In this case, there is. There is an inversion right here that we must pay attention to. Price is using that inversion. Go back to the 1 minute. That's the PD array that we're going to be using for the 15-minute time frame. And when we include time in this low resistance liquidity forms right here, what time do we expect a move to occur? 10:02, 10:07, 10:12. 10:12, you see that reversal. At this point, you need to be managing your trade. Needs to hold this bullish PD array, this BISI right here, if you want to see continuation. And then price expands and takes out all that engineered buy side. At that point, what do? We use the 3-candle order block system for the standard deviation. That high to low, -2.5, -3.5, etc., etc. So this can very easily be your bread and butter for Judas. And it makes it, again, even more high probability if there is a 15-minute PD array. And you're going to want to get in at the discount of the 953 candle. You can wait a bit longer, but it's best to get in at that low and not be afraid. How do you know when to get in? Observe the 15 and 5-minute time frames as well. The candles tell you everything you need to know. Do you see how this candle wicked towards that 15-minute PD array? What did this candle then do? Engulf the wick of this candle and closed above 50% of the previous candle before that one. So at that point, price should not go beneath this order block. Same thing on the 15-minute. The opening price of this candle is up here, right? You're going to want to see price close above that opening price. Think of it as daily buys. Once it closes above that, it tells you it's going to want to see continuation on the next candle. Understood? We'll go through a couple more examples of Judas. Here is ZOM, the stock ZOM, 955, 1020, 953, opening price up here. That's your daily root candle for the session, as well as for Judas. Engineer, sell side. Look for a 15-minute PD array. You're going to want to see bullish PD arrays be disrespected. 10:02, 10:07, 10:12 intervals. And you're going to want to see continuation down at 10:20. In this case, it pushed up slightly thereafter. Why? Because, again, you must be observing the 15-minute time frame. What is happening here? What PD array must we be observing? There is an order block here, bearish order block, but I will personally be observing this BISI inversion for an entry. Price then taps into that PD array, and we have many things occurring in confluence with each other. We have engineered sell side. We have a tap into that 15-minute PD array, which is a bearish PD array. And we have time telling us that Slightly thereafter, before 1034, we need to see a move down and continuation thereafter. Now, when you use these fib levels, the circle of 9 fib levels on PD arrays like this, you don't want to see it close above the 56.25 in this case. If it does, you're going to see continuation. But because it is respecting this level, and if it respects that level, then that is all you need to observe. Now, when it comes to the actual candles, again, observe the 15-minute time frame. Large displacement move. Within 15 minutes, the move begins and is almost over. But if price begins to go beneath the 50% area with the body of this candle, then it tells you the draw. You must also keep in mind other time frames. So the 5-minute, it's the same concept as we talked about. Wicked to that PD array, this next candle closed beneath the entire body of this candle. What can you expect in the next few candles? And there's a whole other aspect to this. Those that have made it far into the video, we'll talk about this later on, but when you see these candles close and disrespect each other off PD arrays, you begin to candle count. So how many candles is this? Right? How many off this high before it starts to push back up? But when it comes to that Judas, you're to expect a move towards that engineered sell side right here. Hits the PD array, high probable trade. Here's another example of engineered buy side for Judas from 955, 1020 is the allotted interval. After that, see how price proceeds further and further into the next time model. 1034 is the next interval for that time model. But at times you see how there's engineered liquidity during Judas, and what should have been the move at 1020 begins to stall out. In this case, this is what makes model 11 occur at 1034. This is a different time model, but when you see engineered liquidity, and especially buy side or sell side, low resistance, it makes it a high probable trade, low risk to go long or short based off that liquidity formed in Judas. And we are still to pay attention to the 953 opening price, just down there. You see how it goes into discount of that. And then what happens on the 15-minute? As we talked about, down close candle. What does the next candle do? Close back above and engulfs the entire body. What does that tell you for the next few candles? That is going to push up. That the bias is going to be towards buy side at that point. Now, for futures, if you see a large move during Big Ben, the time model for London, Big Ben time model, at that time, you're likely to see chop throughout Judas. I'll show you an example. So here's an example of a large downside move, 8:30 news, Big Ben, push down to a 50-minute PD array, Judas, 955 to 1020. What does it start doing at 955? It begins to chop. We must then observe the 953 opening price up here. And we are then looking for a possible long at a specific time. Either we use the 1020 or we wait until 1034, the next time model. Why? Because we have such a large expansive move during Big Ben. And at 1034, what are we to expect? A push up. Take out this engineered buy side to what? The 953 candle. If you are looking for continuations in a trend, I'll show you an example for the weekly session models. Then you can use Judas to do so. Here for Roblox, we have his carryout model, Aries, push down, take out that Judas weekly session sell side. We then have Ash Wednesday and Icarus. It is on top of this liquidity void. That is the PD array that is observing and is filling that liquidity void, right? That new day opening gap. Now, you're expecting, based off the weekly session time models, continuation towards what? The low resistance liquidity. So buy side in this case, right? So you're observing the weekly session root candle. That's the Ash Wednesday root candle. Now, this right here is a separate day, 9:30 New York, to close, right? But when you go to the 1 minute time frame for your daily Judas, you're going to want to see continuation towards this move, towards buy side. So in this case, it was model 110. Price went all the way down to the specific time, and if later on you can come back to this video and see what I'm talking about with model 110, or if you read the book, you already know the times. And then we go to the next day. This is the example I want to portray. So we still have this liquidity up here, and perhaps this new day opening gap way up here, which price does reach. But at open for Friday, February 12th, what is this price action here? What is it doing? From 955, so that's New York open, I'm just going to mark that, to 1020. At this specific time, what is Judas doing? It is engineering buy side. What is it doing? It's sitting on a 15-minute PD array. And what can you expect at 1020 or 1034? A push to take all this buy side out. And you're using that in confluence with the weekly time session models because you're expecting a push up, market maker buy model. You're now getting more granular and micro, and you're using the Judas time frame to enter long based off a weekly session time model narrative. You then get that move all the way until market close for that example. So in this video, we went over several aspects. We went over the time interval for Judas, the root candle we need to observe, 953, the inner intervals of Judas, and how to expect possible times of reversal. We then also went a few examples as to what to expect with 953 and how to expect continuation with time and price of 953. Reversals at 1020, and you're going to want to see continuations at 1020. The low resistance buy side, easy setup, bread and butter setup for Judas. This is fractal. It happens on the weekly session models too for its carryout model. Another example here. And we went over how you want to see, if price wants to continue, a body close above the 953. We then also went over the confluence of the weekly session time model with Judas and how to use that for trend continuation on the weekly time session models. And we also went over the potential terminus endpoints throughout the session for Judas. Best case scenario, like Tesla, 1235, hit that 15-minute BISI, or I think it was an inversion, whatever it may be. It hit that at that exact time, and that was that. After that, time distortion. Short-lived moves like this, for this example, 1034, 1110, price then experiences Model 11 thereafter. I hope this video was insightful. I hope this video clarified a few aspects and showed a few examples of Judas specifically. Until next time.